I always say that entrepreneurship is infectious, right? It's just, you talk to an entrepreneur, the passion.
This is a fantastic story, and I hope you walk in my guest's shoes, Karla Briones.
When I was there literally with my hands building that business along with my parents, I'm like, I want to do the same, right? Like, I want to do something that brings me this much joy.
She was born in an entrepreneurial family in Chihuahua, Mexico. And ironically, her dad was a vet. Her mother managed the practice. But from a very early age, she was shown how hard work and teamwork creates opportunity. At age 6, her parents promised her and her brothers a trip to Disneyland if they could earn straight A's. They did. When it came to pocket money, her father handed her $10 and told her to find a way to make that grow.
I was the Lord. I was the candy Lord.
Karla turned it into a schoolyard candy empire, even hiring classmates on commission, until the cafeteria shut her down. Her parents gave her a quiet high five as she learned her first real lesson in business. But her childhood ambition was soon overshadowed by danger. By the late 1990s, the drug cartel wars were tearing Chihuahua apart.
And because he denied service, the threats started coming. So it became a very unsafe environment.
Friends and family members were lost. Streets were no longer safe. And at 18, her parents sold everything, loaded a U-Haul, and drove nearly 4,000 kilometers north to Ottawa. They had no family here, no jobs, no network, just a belief that they could rebuild. Her dad, he failed veterinary recertification 4 times before finally passing the exam and opening an animal hospital at age 52. Her mother retrained as a lab technician, and Karla arrived with little English, struggled through her first year at Carleton, then fought her way back and graduated in journalism, the first woman on her mother's side to earn a degree. And from there, Karla launched pet stores, restaurants, and retail ventures. Some thrived, some failed, but each taught her that passion matters more than ego, and that doing good is good for business.
Having a purpose bigger than you actually gets you going. It actually makes you wake up every day with a smile on your face because you know you're going to be doing something better than that.
And today, Karla leads Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada, a nonprofit giving newcomers the education, mentorship, and networks she once wished her family had so that they can shorten the distance from arriving to thriving. And as they say, proof is in the pudding. Well, in this case, it's hot pepper sauce. Joining us later in the show is Lena Asma, known as the Hot Pepper Lady, to talk about her business and how Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada helped her dream and do.
When we come here, we are scrappy. We hit the ground running. As far as I can remember, I don't remember ever doing one job.
First, Karla.
You know, I haven't gotten this far to only get this far.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated.
So, Karla, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tony.
I loved watching your TED Talk and sharing that story of age 6 with the carrot put in front of you and your brothers, which was a trip to Disneyland if you guys could pull off straight A's. And I'd love to take us back to that time where your entrepreneurial driven parents, I mean, your dad's a vet, your mom works in the practice, but are really instilling in their children a sense of dreaming and doing.
Yeah, it was, I mean, what little girl doesn't want to go to Disney, right? I was 6 years old and nothing lacked on our table, but we didn't live in opulence. So my parents instilled in us hard work from the very get-go. And the funny story is that they wanted us to get straight A's. And in exchange of getting straight A's for an entire year, they would take us to Disneyland. But the real reason why they wanted us to get straight A's is so that we could get a scholarship for the private school that we were going to. So it was sort of our way to kind of help them out. And so that we would be able to have this really good education. But in exchange, we needed those straight A's. So the carrot was that trip to Disneyland. And once we got the trip to Disneyland, and now we needed to come up with, spending money for our souvenirs and whatnot. In my head, it was like, well, I'm going to sell candy, right? Like it's because I lived through seeing my parents, creating something out of nothing. And in Mexico, when I was growing up, it's a very hustle mentality where everybody's selling you something, right? They might have a job, they might have something full-time, but there's always your aunt selling you cakes, your cousin selling you watches, secondhand watches. So it's a very hustling mentality. So for me, it was sort of natural, what can I offer to my friends that I know that they needed, which was, the real candy, the nice candy that wasn't available at the cafeteria. So that's why I asked my dad for $20, and he was my first investor.
And what I love about this story is that it just wasn't some cute kid selling a couple of bags of candy. I mean, you turned this into a bit of empire. You became a competitive threat to the cafeteria. You had your classmates working for you.
I was the Lord. I was the candy Lord.
And I love what you said. My parents secretly high-fived me, but you had to shut the business down because the school was losing sales to the 6-year-old.
I know.
I'm going to move it forward a little bit. We just laughed and said you were the candy lord, but you also grew up in a part of the world in Chihuahua where it was drug lords, it was cartel. And this violence, from what I understand, was horrific. We weren't just talking about fear of the unknown. You were losing friends and family members, and being on the street was considered dangerous. So just what do you remember of that time?
So in the late 90s in Mexico, that's when the cartels really started hitting our streets. And also at the same time, there were a lot of killings, a lot of women, like feminicides. So like a lot of women were being killed. And the women that were being killed were about my age, being left on the side of the road. So there was just a lot happening in terms of safety concerns. I remember not being able to go out to parties. When you're 16, 17, you want to go out with your friends. My parents were so afraid to let me go out to parties just because you didn't know if the kids were going to come back or not. There was a point where I actually had a driver, somebody to drive me around, a gentleman, so that driver/person that could do something in case something happened. And my parents later realized, that that's not the type of life that we want. They started getting some death threats as well because they didn't want to get involved in the drug lord. One way that the drug lords launder the money is to run horses, like raise horses, and horses get injured. And my dad's a veterinarian, and he had a very well-equipped veterinary clinic. And because he denied service, the threats started coming. So it became a very unsafe environment to be, and it was very, very toxic and having to watch our backs all the time. That's when my parents made the decision, this is not how we want to raise our kids, because they were going to be, at that point, they were starting to charge business owners protection fee, by the same lords. This is not where we want to live. So let's take a look at where we can go. And the States was not even an option for us, just because we're Mexicans and we live very close to the border. So we already knew what it was like, racism and whatnot. So it was not a friendly environment for us. So we just kept looking north, and that's where Canada was. And that's where we decided to come.
Have you ever mentally retrace those steps of what it meant for your parents that had everything set up and established, and realizing that they were dismantling it all, not only for their own protection, but I say, primarily for their kids? It must have been traumatic for them.
I'm 46 years old right now, and I am the age my mom was when she moved us to Canada. And I can't even fathom it. At the time when I came, I was 18. So for me, it was sort of exciting, scary. I started school right away, so I kind of didn't really have time to process the change. Meanwhile, at home, when my parents couldn't work, they couldn't find jobs or anything because my dad's license wasn't transferable here into Canada. And my mom, she was a school teacher. That also didn't transfer here. And I just remember my parents being extremely depressed. There was a point where I had 3 part-time jobs. I was the sole provider for a little while there, because my parents all of a sudden, they went from being my everything, my sole providers, to all of a sudden coming here, and the tables are turned. It was definitely a pretty dramatic time in our year. Like our first 3 years were really tough. My mom went into depression. She was diagnosed with cancer. My dad trying to recertify. So it was a true test as a family and as newcomers. Many times we were thinking about going back, but then we were going back to what? We sold everything. Like there is nothing out there.
Where do you think you got the courage? I mean, the 6-year-old, obviously Disney is a great carrot to put in front of you and the candy empire. But even just what you just talked about was you suddenly went from being the child to the provider, but you powered through it, found the jobs. You had to grow up really quick.
Yeah, I think survival kicks in really quick, especially as an immigrant when you don't have a choice, right? Like where there is no other choice. And back in the late 90s when we came here, settlement agencies were just starting. So we didn't even have that opportunity. We didn't even realize that those existed. So for me, it wasn't an option. Like it was sort of like I got into this work mode and I got into like study hard mode and working hard mode. It probably is something that I need to talk to my therapist because I haven't even really processed it yet, 20 some years later, but it's just get in a zone and you just roll up your sleeves and you do what you need to do in order to survive and in order to thrive because we've done it before in the past in our home country and, we're going to do it again. And I think staying together as a family, that kind of gave us the foundation to together go against all odds.
Do you think part of what Canadians that have a lot are missing is this sense, and we're going to bring Lena on as well, talking about is I have no choice, therefore I must. And out of that, you're also bottling a lot of adrenaline and positivity and possibility because even if you go 3 steps forward and 4 steps back, if you keep moving, you're eventually going to keep moving forward. Do you think that's missing a little bit, that we have it so good in Canada that we haven't got that resilience that seems to be really woven into your DNA?
To a certain degree, in our countries, in our home countries, we're not used to the government fixing all your problems. We're not used to pointing the finger at the government and expecting the government to fix our lives. And we're very self-sufficient as citizens of whatever country we are from, particularly if it's a developing country, where we kind of, make our own destiny. We have to because we don't rely on the government. We don't rely on organizations. So when we come here, we kind of expect that it's going to be the same. So we actually get very surprised and it almost hits us like a fire hose when we come to Canada and we realize, holy smokes, how many programs, how much support there is. It's almost too good to be true. That availability of support and resources, if you were born here with those options, it's very easy to just expect, right? Expect people and organizations to help you out. And maybe when bad things hit the fan, it's probably harder to figure out how to go into survival modes.
You go to school for journalism, but very quickly you become an entrepreneur. Some you do quite well with and some you have to bootstrap. But just how did that come about where you decided that being my own boss, it's not only something that I want to be, but I feel I'm capable of doing?
It was the same year that my parents finally opened their veterinary clinic here. And I was in Toronto. I was coming back every weekend to help them. And it was literally, we were like ripping floors from this little house that became the clinic and putting new floors. And we were knocking down walls and putting, new walls. And we were there as a family again, right? And it was just, I always say that entrepreneurship is infectious, right? It's just, you talk to an entrepreneur, the passion. When I was there literally with my hands building that business along with my parents, I'm like, I want to do the same, right? Like I want to do something that brings me this much joy. And then I got a dog. And that's when I realized, you know what, I want to do this. And it's funny because I remember calling my parents and saying, hey, I've been thinking about this and I think I want to open up a pet store. And I was, fast tracking into my public relations career and marketing career and doing very well for myself as a, young 20-some-year-old. And I kind of waited for my parents to go like, we went through all of this for you to switch and blah, blah, blah. But there was like actually silence on the line. My parents' response was like, so why don't you? we've gone so far. We've done so much together. You've seen us start from scratch. What's stopping you from going after your own dreams? And I think that was the pivotal moment. I was like, yeah, it was like almost like a slap in my face. Yeah, what's stopping me? Why don't I?
Well, your timing was perfect. I mean, 2008 recession. Sandy Sharkey comes into the story with a photo exhibit. What was that all about? And I wish the podcast people could see you touching your heart.
So the recession was a terrible time to open a business. However, a pet industry business, it's very recession proof. We were able to convince the bankers to lend us money. We sold, we had a house in Toronto. All of our baskets were in this business. And again, it's like failure is not an option, right? So I went into that, okay, I'm going to make it work. I had just had a kid. I was in my maternity leave, sold house, Toronto, moved back to Ottawa with a newborn, quit my career and get into this industry that I know through my dad, but I've never worked in it, never done retail in my life. All I knew was how to do marketing, right? How to do public relations. So, and I remember seeing one time a dog on the streets with their human person who was homeless. And I started thinking about, how can we help them? How can we use our business to help the community? And that's when I kind of started getting all creative through my marketing background. How about we create a photo exhibit? We invite a photographer that is well known and help us take photographs of people who are homeless, who have pets, and raise awareness about them and provide food, provide anything, supplies that these people need for their animals. And we were able to do that. And we actually fundraised quite a bit. A lot of the people that we brought awareness to, they ended up getting homed or housed because there was just so much attention. Also, the fact that a lot of people who live on the streets who have animals, they can't go into a regular shelter system because the animals are not accepted. So we brought in a whole bunch of awareness with Sandy and the local counselors, and most of them got housed, which was really cool too.
To move the story forward, because I really want to get into Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada, you create another venture, Freshie, and before you know it, you find another purpose. COVID hits, and next thing you know, you're serving food to the healthcare workers. Out of it becomes yet another manifestation of Karla, which is this voice that I'm an advocate for change.
When this whole Freshie situation was happening, how can I use my business for something other than just creating a wrap or building a burrito, right? That's when I started feeding people in hospitals and nurses and whatnot. We got amazing notes from doctors who were trying to figure out old ventilators. And there was a picture of one of our products next to a ventilator and a doctor saying, "Thank you for feeding us. We've been here nonstop." So trying to create a purpose, because sometimes when you are in such a high stress situation, trying to figure out how you're going to make your business survive, having a purpose bigger than you actually gets you going. It actually makes you wake up every day with a smile on your face because you know you're going to be doing something better than that. And then as I started posting about this, all of a sudden I get a call from the Ottawa Citizen, our local newspaper, and said, "Hey, we're looking for small business owners who want to put a voice to other small business owners and hear from you guys from the front lines." I actually studied journalism in university, but because English is my second language, I always thought that I was a terrible writer and I was not good at it. And it kind of became full circle. I had to kind of fight my own, imposter syndrome. And then I said, you know what? Yes, let's do it. And then that's when I started talking to other small business owners, writing columns about how small business were doing throughout the pandemic. And it was very fulfilling because I got to hear other stories. I got to give those stories voices. What I always kept thinking in my head is that Karla is more than just Docable. Karla is more than lettuce and rice and bowls. How can Karla, the immigrant, the entrepreneur, the woman, the mom, the citizen can do something greater than in support of our community? And I saw that opportunity for writing as one way of contributing.
You're becoming this advocate, this storyteller. I loved your TED Talk, by the way. I'll put a note in the podcast to do it. Talk to me about how all of this manifests into Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada. The passion I hear in your voice when you're talking about it in the media just roars through.
It actually goes back to my parents again. When my dad actually had to go through emergency brain surgery. And he went into the surgery at the same time that he was about to sell his business. And as he's almost wheeling into the operating room, I'm signing papers that if something goes wrong, I'm in charge of selling his business and I have full power of attorney. And he survives. But while I'm actually helping do the transition and the due diligence with the potential buyer, I realized that he made tons of mistakes back when he was setting up. And those mistakes cost quite a fair bit of money to fix and back taxes and whatnot, that his retirement got almost put in jeopardy. And that's when I'm like, whew, okay, so I wonder how many others have gone through this, have lost their life savings, other immigrants have invested in a business that went bust, that was the wrong one, they didn't have the support. And in that moment, that's when I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my mission in life, is to get all of the knowledge, all of the skills, all of the connections that I've kind of accumulated in my years as an entrepreneur, and how can I pay that forward to the next generation of entrepreneurs. I was doing it sort of on the side. So I was doing my pet stores. I was doing Freshie, but then I was always, volunteering in the local settlement agencies and giving talks. Or I created my own online academy to kind of put this out in the world. I've graduated so many entrepreneurs from not just Canada, but actually abroad. And they come to Canada with the knowledge and the skills and the connections. And then when I made the decision, you know what, I need to get rid of this Freshie business, it's causing more problems and financial and health stress. I got 2 pre-strokes from the stress in my 40s, like early 40s, that I'm like, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm just going to, shut down this business. It gave me the room and the space to actually focus full-time, well, not full-time, but most of it full-time in this organization. And that's when Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada was born in 2023. And hopefully it will outlive me, right? Hopefully it'll grow into the organization that I can see in my head. I see it. I can almost touch it and feel it.
So share that dream. Lena's going to come on and talk about her personal experience with it. But before she does, where do you see this going?
It is supposed to be a national organization. However, all of our programming is starting in Ottawa. We're beta testing a lot of things. My dream is to have offices across Canada in like different provinces, so that we're able to execute programs of business incubation. We want to have a fund so that we're able to fund immigrant entrepreneurs in their business journeys, either startup business or business acquisitions. And we want to have a network of mentors throughout Canada to actually help encourage, mentor, and teach immigrant entrepreneurs once they're coming to Canada, and how they can do it without getting tricked, without losing their life savings, and with the right support tools that they need in order to make their business dreams a reality, whether it is starting from scratch or acquiring an existing business. I mean, right now, immigrant entrepreneurs make 32% of all small businesses in Canada, and that's with very little support, with a lot of hurdles. So can you imagine if there is a national organization with the right support, the right funding, the right resources, so that we're able to propel that 32% and to not just have them create micro businesses, but create businesses that are exporting, create businesses that are hiring more, and that are creating a really, really huge contribution to the local economies.
Do you think when it gets to a certain point, offices nationally and stuff, that you're going to have to find the next tightrope to walk on because you're just kind of wired for the next candy empire? Or do you think that you're going to realize that this is my home and I'm going to continue to shepherd this along?
I think this is my home. This is what I want to be when I grow up. So I would say about 80% of my time is focused on this, 20% on everything else. I'm also a mom and a wife and all of that. I've been doing this unpaid. So it takes time to fund an organization like this. And I've been volunteering in my own organization, and it's hard. It's hard to keep going as a volunteer, but I know that this is needed. I know I've seen the transformation that the programs have in the people that participate in them, that it's, I haven't gotten this far to only get this far.
Before I introduce Lena to the show, I just want to say, Karla, I always end my shows with my 3 takeaways. And in your case, the first one is this incredible statistic. Newcomers make up 32% of the entrepreneurial businesses in Canada. And if we could only unleash and unbridle and take away the bureaucracy, imagine what would happen. And I think a lot of it comes to the second point you made, is that a lot of these newcomers, when they come to Canada, they've grown up in a climate where they don't expect from the government. The only people they can expect success from is themselves and their family supporting them. And then the third thing and the most important thing that comes through is family. I love that moment of truth, rather than your parents saying, you got a university, you've got a great career, when you're sort of testing the waters about wanting to trade all of that to become your own business person, and they just simply come back and say, why don't you? And I think that's a lesson for a lot of people to, instead of immediately going to the reasons why not, or how safe it seems like to stand on firm ground, why don't you is about adventure and dancing like no one's watching and all that comes with being an entrepreneur. When we return, we'll venture further and talk to one of those successful transition, an entrepreneur with a dream, Lena Asma, the one and only hot pepper lady, and she'll talk about how Immigration Entrepreneur Canada played such an instrumental role in making her dream a reality.
You think you know it all. You don't know it all. Having a mentor, somebody who is listening to your whining and all those things, that alone speaks volumes.
Imagine immigrating to Canada. You bring your past, you carry your present, and you dream about a better future. And for many newcomers, that dream is about starting their own business, to turning their ideas into something real. That's why Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada exists, to help newcomers both dream and do, scale or acquire a business. When they do that, they build their lives, their livelihood, and strengthen ours. And since 2023, Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada has reached more than 2,000 people. And through their retail incubator, 40 immigrants have turned ideas into income, products into pride, and purpose into possibility. And I'm proud to say that from the very beginning, RBC has been there, with a specialized newcomer banking team, often made up by immigrants themselves. And they know what it means to guide entrepreneurs every step of the way. Register a business, open an account, plan for growth, and that's just a start. They connect mentors, build confidence, speak in 6 different languages, but always with one belief. When newcomers thrive, Canada thrives. RBC, proud founding supporter, Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada's Retail Incubator Program. Here's to the dreams and ideas that matter to you, to me, to every newcomer, and to RBC.
As a visionary, for me, sometimes it's hard to start small because it takes time, right? It takes time to build something like this. But I want this to be an organization that transcends me. I'll start it. I know I'm not going to be the one leading it forever. And I want this to continue to grow with or without me.
Today, I'm joined by 2 incredible women, Karla Briones from Immigration Entrepreneur Canada and Lena Asma, the hot pepper lady. Her entrepreneurial dream, why being with like-minded people matter, and the success she's finding in this wonderful country called Canada. And Lena Asma, welcome to A Chatter That Matters.
Hello, Tony. Thank you for having me.
I love going through your website. I love the energy of what you are. Where did you come from?
I come from Ghana, originally, West Africa.
And you brought something with you. You brought your love of food and unique taste of your country. But rather than just hoarding it for your own people, you decided that one of the things you'd love to do is to share some of those incredible sauces and recipes with Canadians. And I think food's an incredible way to bridge cultures and to sit down and get to know each other and say, your smile is wonderful and I want to give you a hug. And yes, I'll try your sauce, even though it might burn off my palate and you consider it mild. Before we get into your venture, what was interesting is you also work full time and have yet found the time to start a business. How do you manage to do it all? I've just had one superwoman, Karla. What's the secrets you can share with us in terms of your ability to juggle many bottles of hot sauce as well as everything else that's going on in your life?
As Karla mentioned, when we come here, we are scrappy. We hit the ground running. As far as I can remember, I don't remember ever doing one job. Of course, you need to have your job that pays the bills, right? So you have that. But you never have enough, especially if you have children, that's, so you're always hustling. For me, it wasn't necessarily seeing it as a job. It was just doing. If my son were here, it's like, Mom, you keep bringing stuff home because there's always a project. If it's not painting the house when it strikes me, it is stripping a furniture and putting it together. And, I'm always into something. Tried many other businesses that haven't worked. But this, I know, feeding people comes naturally. And seeing the satisfaction of somebody having something that you've made, enjoying it, not just feeding them as, sustenance, but rather really enjoying it. It is fulfilling.
You're not just going down to the local grocery store and buying a few peppers. I mean, you're a farmer, you're vertically integrated. So besides, painting your house and fixing up your furniture, you found a way to really say, if I'm going to create these authentic sauces and spicy slaws, I want to make sure I know what seeds are going into the ground.
When I want something, I don't just want the regular peppers. I have to have the most unique of the peppers, right? And I need to make a sauce that would use that particular unique pepper. Well, I'm just going to have to grow my own unique pepper so I can use it in that particular sauce. You end up with 160 varieties of peppers. If I'm going to be selling seedlings, it's not going to be any good old regular Roma tomatoes. It has to be the one that is, looks like a drumstick or a wooden spoon. Like everything, I go overboard, right? And in this instance, it seems to work. And it's like the interest is actually helping the business grow. It's landed in a very safe and soft spot where everything is coming together. So I am enjoying myself, albeit tired, because like you say, I still have a full-time job.
So talk to me about Immigrant Entrepreneur Canada, because this is how we came together. How did that become part of your life? And maybe at the same time, realizing that you were with like-minded people, scrappy people that were just looking for maybe a compass in their hand, point them in the right direction.
Last April, I believe, I did an event, a market. It wasn't the greatest of event in terms of returns. First year doing these things, I figured, you have to go through them. Then you get to decide which ones would be good for you. But out of that event, I got an email being invited to one of the old ministers. I believe it was Anita Anna. She was making some sort of an announcement. And so I got an invite to go. I did not want to go because the invitation came on a Saturday evening and the event was a Sunday afternoon. All throughout the night, even though I decided not to go, it was just gnawing at me. I didn't understand why. So eventually I'm like, you know what? I'll go. So I go and I'm sitting there. Anita Anand comes on. There are other people that come to speak. I'm thinking, she's just announcing another program and, that's what it is. Nothing big, whatever. And then after her, Karla came on to speak. And right behind her was a poster that says, Immigrant Entrepreneurial Canada Summer Incubator Program. A little thing underneath it, 1 week in the Byward market. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. That spiked my interest right away. But what even blew me away was when Karla started to talk. Oh, I actually am understanding what she's saying, and it really aligns with what I'm doing. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before. Now, I had been to Invest Canada. I've gone through what they were doing, but it was almost as if you move inside the circles where you go here. Yes, you qualify for this, but then because of this, you cannot go through it. But this was holistic. I actually interrupted someone who was speaking to Karla, and I went in and I spoke to her, and she's like, apply. She called me back within a few days, and we had an interview, and then I got into the program. Well, it was an eye-opener. Anybody opening a business should go through something like this. It's just good practice. Sets you right, tells you where you need to be. You think you know it all. You don't know it all. Having a mentor, somebody who is listening to your whining and all those things, that alone speaks volumes, because these people have gone through the same process and they see the pitfalls, right? I'm one of the first graduates of this program.
And how important is the community, not just the content, but the community where you're learning, but realizing there's other people that have the same fears and at times are fearless, and all this sort of roller coaster ride we go through as entrepreneurs.
You know, as a person of color, this is something that we get a lot. I grew up in Ghana, so racism wasn't a big thing for us. When I first came to Canada, being transplanted into a country where when you look around, everybody is white, it is daunting. And as Karla was speaking, and she would know exactly what I'm talking about, the language. I speak English. I grew up in a British colony. My English written was actually much better than some Canadians that I have met. But your accent makes you all of a sudden not qualified. People are listening to the accent. They are not listening to what it is that you're saying. And so when you step into the stage like that and you are in a glass, everybody sees you being the singular person. In this group, I'm in that glass with so many others that feels the same. We are connected in so many ways. In food, because I remember the first time I saw plantain in a grocery store in Canada, how excited I was. It is plantain, literally. It's not a big deal, but the comfort it brought me. And I can speak to the lady who comes from Ukraine, who, when she opens her mouth, people hear the accent, not what she's talking about. Iran. We are all different, but the same, where our differences is actually what is bringing us together. It feels so good to be amongst people of the same experiences, right? I'm not going up the stairs by myself. I got somebody who's pulling me up, and I'm now beginning to start to pull other people up with me.
You said something right that I think is one of the most important lessons I've heard, and I think I'm almost at 300 episodes with Chatter That Matters. We listen to the accent, not what they're talking about. Probably the most perfect way to frame our biases and immediately putting somebody in a box. They can't be as smart as me, or they can't be as enterprising, or they don't understand the way I understand because they have a different accent, which is really, I always say we're one human race, but it never seems to work out that way. So it's just beautiful that what you're saying. And I also love the fact that we're scrappy. I've always had more than one job. An attitude I'd love to bottle and give to kids of all ages. Has your kids, do they have the same attitude that you do, or is because
I'm after them? Like, I will tell you, my daughter is gone back to school to do her master's, and she's talking about going back to do her PhD. Both my children were high achievers, athletes, and not necessarily because I was pushing them. In my home, my no was not a no. My no was an opening for you to negotiate. Convince me to change my mind. Unless it's something that's going to harm you. My son, at 15 years old, was elected to go. He got a scholarship, ended up going to school in the U.S., was recruited by all 8 Ivy League schools, by the way. Ended up going to Princeton for 2 years, played football with them, transferred to Arkansas State. He wrote an essay while he was in Princeton, did very well. And I think the teacher was trying to, talk to him about the essay, the content of it and stuff like that. It's like, listen, I've been debating since I was 6. My mother is tough. And there's no way you were going to get that over me. I learned from the best, right? And my daughter will always say, you don't know, I'm Mama P's daughter, right? And it's like, I tell them, luck is being prepared when opportunity knocks. And I'm pushing you. Like you have no choice in the matter. I'm pushing you till you can go no further. My daughter ended up going to University of Guelph on a rugby scholarship. She's played for Team Canada, done all that she can do in that sphere. It's not necessarily me pushing them. You've got a talent, you've got an ability, realize it. If you come home with an 80, well, okay, you could have done 100, but did you do your best? Was that your best? If that was your best, if you got a 30, was that your best that day? Because some days we are off, right? But was it your best? So as long as you put your best foot forward, I'm good.
There's two other things. I thought I was just going to give the one lesson, but then you got to hit me with luck is being prepared when opportunity knocks. A great saying. But the other one is, and the best one, even better than the one I thought was the best I heard, is no is where you're open to negotiate. And what a wonderful way to treat critical thinking in families and in business. No. What do you mean no? No, unless you give me a better argument, it's no. Karla, I got to go back to you for a second. And as we wrap this up, but with all these incredible stories that are happening around you, what are you doing to share some of your lessons in life and lessons like Lena's just shared with us? Because I think that as much as you want to expand nationally with offices, I think you've got to be taking this into high schools and universities, including by the fact you're 25, you need to have more than one job. You're sitting on a treasure chest of ways which people can make their destiny a matter of choice, not chance. And it has nothing to do with the education. It has everything to do with the application of these incredible lessons. Karla, you need to start your own podcast and share stories like Lena's, or we got to find a way to do more of these things.
I have many stories.
Now, is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye on this? Any final thoughts you'd want to leave with my audience in terms of getting off your ass and just getting it done?
I want to take a page from Karla's book. Our food systems, how it is going, and, what a little piece of land can do. I want to start a program where, I would work with especially younger teenagers, younger kids, where we're starting from one of the slogans of my business is from seed to bottle. So I want to do a from seed to bottle journey where I'm working with teenagers, where we're starting from when I'm starting to plant the seeds for the vegetables. And we go through a whole season where we're growing it, we're harvesting it, we're preparing it, we're bottling it, we're selling it. That alone let the kids know that I have this innate ability in me that I can create something. At the age of 14, you may think that I cannot do anything. That, you know what? I really don't remember learning how to cook. All I remember is being around my grandmother when she cooked. The conversations, the smells, the feel of things. Like, all of a sudden, I realized I could cook. When you are around something good, it becomes part of you.
Karla, any final thoughts?
I love what I do. And as I mentioned, I want to expand it across to actually bring programming to rural communities. I think immigrant entrepreneurs in the rural areas are very underserved. And that's where a very big impact or economic impact can happen, because if we lose businesses in those rural communities, if we lose farms in those rural communities, if we lose grocery stores in those rural communities because people are retiring or, they're closing, that can have really, really big impact. So the answer could potentially be, let's empower immigrants in those communities to actually take over and continue that economic development in those communities. So sharing the stories, whether it is through a podcast, blogging, a YouTube channel, and bringing more support, not just to the bigger cities, but I have a keen interest in rural communities as well.
Well, other than exhausting me, by the two of you, just because of everything you're doing, I have to say I'm honestly feeling more optimistic about Canada than I was when I woke up this morning. and hearing all the reasons why not, that there's people like you out there that just goes, let's just get on with it. For all of that and more, I just want to thank you so much for joining me in Chatter That Matters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.